Are the Detroit Lions pretenders or
contenders?
Contenders, right?
Yeah. 1 2 1 2.
Hey yo, AC.
1 2 1 2. Mic check. Hey, can y'all hear me out there? Hey. Against all odds. 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 Against all odds.
The podcast.
Shout out to Rock on the Detroit Lions, man.
There
My
you
pride.
Let's just get into it and talk about probably the most significant accomplishment, I think, for the Detroit Lions over the last few seasons since Dan Campbell has been the head coach and since Brad Holmes has been the GM is the sustained division dominance. I think that for myself, watching us finally capitalize the NFC North, not once, but twice, and then take it the distance to the playoffs, win a couple of home field, playoff games that I was at. I mean, there was nothing more electric than being in Detroit, watching Matthew Stafford limp home that first time. It was beautiful. But pretenders and contenders. So let's just do it, man. Back-to-back NFC North titles, 23 and 24. And this sustained division dominance is what I'm talking about. Why I feel the Lions are not pretenders. I feel the Lions are contenders. This is my argument. 15 and 2 last year. Limped out, if you will, the regular season. I mean, on crutches, right? Maybe a few wheelchairs involved. 13 and 4 the previous season. Pretty healthy to finish the season. To me, that proves this was not a one-year fluke, right? They did it on the backs of backups last year. They did it on the backs of the starters the year before. They set franchise records along the way. I mean, dozens and dozens and dozens of franchise records, NFL records galore for Jared Goff and others. Finally get the 1 seed, right? 2 home playoff wins. Undefeated on the road in 2024. Undefeated in the division in 2024. There ain't no way the Detroit Lions are pretenders in 2025. I guess I'll hand it over to you, though, and you tell me why you feel like possibly pretenders this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, Detroit's got the second toughest schedule in the entire league in 2025. So this isn't going to be an easy slate of games. They've got road trips. They're going to Kansas City. They've got to go to Baltimore. You're traveling to Philadelphia, defending Super Bowl champions. You go to Cincinnati. You go to LA to play the Rams. Then you have home games that aren't going to be any easier. You've got Dallas, Tampa. You got Pittsburgh. Plus, there's early division games that are hugely important. Obviously, the pressure is on to win these games early. Now, there are some who may question if the Lions can perform when the stage is brightest, when the lights are brightest and the stakes are at their absolute highest. They lost pretty badly to Washington in the divisional game. Yeah, there was a point in the third quarter where it was, a one-score game, but it never really felt like the Lions were in control in that game. And then we all remember what happened the year before, the NFC Championship at San Francisco. They collapsed, gave away a golden opportunity to get to the Super Bowl. So let us know in the comments, do you think the Lions may collapse when the stage is at its brightest and the stakes are at their highest? Is there a possibility that the Lions are just a dominant regular season team prone to fail in the playoffs?
Wait a second, man. Are you trying to say that we're the next Pittsburgh Steelers? Is that what you're saying? Or I guess we probably didn't preface this whole segment, right? Fielding a lot of questions from fans, digging through the archives and trying to figure out, what are we? What are the Detroit Lions? And that's what this is all about. And I hear you. I mean, the Lions collapsed, right? They absolutely collapsed against the 49ers. I don't feel that they collapsed against the Commanders. That game, from my opinion, was, if we win, probably the most luck in history. Going into a game where your entire team is just decimated by injury. Alex Anzalone is coming onto the field with an arm wrapped in carbon fiber. You know what I'm saying? Like, this wasn't a team that was supposed to win. And, man, they played their hearts out. And that shows me even more, they're not pretenders, man. I feel like they're contenders. So let's go into offensive firepower for a second. A lot of cohesion on this offense and a lot more records with this offense over the last couple of seasons. Lions, like I said earlier, they had back-to-back division titles. How about back-to-back first-place schedules for the first time ever for this team? This is not something that we've ever had to deal with in Detroit, and we've handled it well. They've done a great job at winning the games they have to win, and the games that they're supposed to win, like the Tennessee Titans, or the Dallas Cowboys even, wipe the floor with them, right? That proves to me that this team is not a pretender. How about Jared Goff, man? Probably one of the most consistent quarterbacks in the NFL the last 3 seasons, 2.5 seasons at least. At the turn of 1-6 in 2022, Jared Goff finishes 8-2 that season, and ever since that turn, he has not let up. His stats have gotten better and better and better every year. How about, I'll just throw you a few. Last season, he was 2nd in yards per attempt. He was 4th in TDs, bottom 3rd in sacks taken, 6th fastest time to throw. Man, he was getting that ball out so quick. Top 6 in explosives. Get this. This is at 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, and 50 yards. He was top 6 in all categories. So for those of you that think he doesn't have an arm, he has an arm. How about throwing less pass attempts with more efficiency and more production than Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow lit the field on fire last year for Cincinnati. I want to throw this at you. I had to write this one down. So Joe Burrow touted as the passing king of last season. If Jared Goff put up the ball 725 times like he did in 2024, not only would he have had 900 more yards than Joe Burrow did, which would have been roughly 5,700 passing yards, it would have been a brand new NFL record. And how I got to that number is just the average yards per attempt, which I think was like 8.6 or 8.4 in that neighborhood. So if Goff would have just thrown for his average, he would have had a new NFL record last year. How about points scored, Riley? Last year, the Lions were third in points scored, 595 points. And they were fifth in 2023. So what that tells me is they're getting better from year over year, right? They're fifth in 23, third in 24. And that's kind of been the story about everything that they've been doing the last couple of seasons. Now, just to kind of give you a little bit of history, the Bills led the league last year, and the Lions were only behind them by 17 points. They had 612. The year before that, the Cowboys led the league with 509 points. Big dip in points between 23 and 24. The leader, you're talking 100 in 6 points or so difference. How about some records? Franchise records for the Lions. 5 different players scored 7 touchdowns or more last season. How about 4 players having 1,000 yards and 10 TDs or more? And then how about, here's the kicker. All of those skill players are back in 2025. Here's the cohesion part. So we've gone through, just about everything else in that segment. Offensive firepower, records, now cohesion. From 2023 to 2025, the Lions brought in Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. Amon-Ra St. Brown's been around. They had Jared Goff, Jamison Williams, Khalif Raymond. And they've all been playing together for at least 3 seasons now. Okay? Same offense. You also have the second year for Tim Patrick. And then you're also adding weapons like Dominic Lovett and Isaac Tesla in 2025. I think that that'll prove for Jared Goff to not only have more depth, but to have more options to throw the ball. So I'm saying hell no, man. They're not pretenders. They're contenders in 25. You tell me, what is the pretender argument for this team?
You're going to need a little bit of new time in a new system. Now, I want to make it clear, I do expect the offense to, as Will just pointed out with those stats, to continue to improve or even just maintain this level of excellence, right? It's hard. There's not a lot of room to improve from here, but time in a new system with a new coach could take time to develop. The Lions aren't going to come out week 1 and pick up right where they left off. It is a new team. There is new leadership. There are new captains in charge, not player captains, but understand what I'm saying with coaches calling the shots. Can the Lions also afford injury on offense? Now, I hate to even say this, but we know last year, 18 players on defense went down. The thing is, all of those players were on the defensive side of the ball. The Lions had remarkable health on the offensive side of the ball last year. So can that continue? And if Goff goes down, or if it's not Goff, if it's one of the other offensive players, we lost Ragnow. There's little room for error, it seems. So you tell us, are you worried that the Lions will need time to adjust under Morton? And are you concerned about health on the offensive side of the football?
Riley, I'm baffled, man. You're thinking that it's going to take all this time. Now, I'm not saying you, right? But you're the pretender in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And you're bringing these things to light. These are the things that everyone's been talking about. And we fit it into 2 categories, pretender and contender. And here's what I'm going to say, because you said the time and new system. And, it's going to take some time for the Lions to develop. That maybe they won't come out just the same offense as they were last year. How about Jahmyr Gibbs, right? If Jared Goff is struggling, hand the ball off. You're talking about one of the most dynamic running backs in the NFL entering his 3rd season, which last year he killed it. 1,412 yards, 5.6 yards per carry, 16 TDs, and then added 52 receptions, 512 yards, and another 4 TDs. 20 TDs for this guy last season. Now, Jahmyr Gibbs has been slowly been integrated into the offense as far as in the passing game. Last year was his best year yet. This year, I think he's going to take it to the next level. Matter of fact, Gibbs thinks that he's going to go 1,000 and 1,000 this year. He bet Amon-Ra that he's going to do it, and Amon-Ra said what? He's going to buy him a house or something like that. So I expect him to get close. That's a hard one. But to challenge, the pretender argument that it's going to take time, you still have 2 of the best running backs in the league on this team. David Montgomery, he was down for 5 games last year. Still pulled off 775 yards, 0 TDs in the passing game, but 4.2 yards per carry and 12 TDs on the ground, and also hauled in 36 receptions for 341 yards. So absolutely not. I don't believe it's going to take any time, and that's because you can just hand the ball off, and these guys can put 2,000 yards, on the ground between the two of them or more. And I think that's going to be exactly what they do again this season. And I think that John Morton understands that. And he's going to take a more balanced approach in the beginning and maybe not lose his head if he's having a little bit of challenges. So I don't know. How do you feel about that response? Having the two best backs in the league and John Morton not having to worry about it.
Yeah. So the thought that comes to mind for me, does losing Ragnow and Kevin Zeitler, does that give you any concern? Now, it's easy to think, of course it gives you concern, but I think for most people, you think of the passing game, you think of Goff, right? But I remember specific plays last year where Ragnow was clearing out a hole that the worst running back in the NFL could have probably taken for a 20-yard gain. So will losing Ragnow and Kevin Zeitler prove to be costly with the addition of a rookie and a second-year player that are unproven that need to go in and fill those gaps? That's a lot of pressure on those guys. Now, another thought that I have, this isn't so much an argument, but just a thought. If the Lions start slow, will John Morton panic and maybe break the identity of the offense and turn to Goff to start passing the ball 40-plus times a game? We saw that last year. The games that they lost, which weren't many, but we remember week 2 against Tampa, Goff threw the ball like 50-some-odd times. Would they start to feel, and I'm saying would they start slow for the season? Also within a game. If they get down 21 points in the first half, do they just abandon the run game? Again, those are some thoughts that I have. Let us know. Do you expect Sonic and Knuckles to continue to lead this offensive engine that is the Detroit Lions offense?
I think this one's easily handled, though. Just my thought. One, yes. Am I concerned about Ragnow being gone? I am. Am I concerned that they lost Zeitler? I mean, two guys, two of the best at their position. I want to say both of them ranked in the top third last season for pass blocking and run blocking. I don't think it's going to be too costly because I think that we have some innovative play callers. Number one, Mr. John Morton, offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions, gets his first opportunity with Detroit. And then David Shaw. I mean, those guys are best friends. They've been working around each other, with each other, on and off over the last 20-plus years, whether it's been NFL or college, for the two of them. So new concepts, I think they're coming. Same identity, I think it's going to be there. I think it's going to be the same style of offense, just a different, schematical language, if you will. Then you have Kelvin Shepard and his promotion to defensive coordinator. So he's not a new guy. Right? The team knows him. They understand him. They know what they want from him. Or I'm sorry, excuse me. They know what he wants from them as players. And I think it's an easy transition, but man, does he have a ton of pressure on his shoulders too. And I do get that. I think that the defensive coordinator, the scheme or the defensive scheme, I think is going to be maintained at the same level that it was before. I think that he's learned a lot from Aaron Glenn. And I think that he's probably going to take it to new heights. Probably not going to see some of the same mistakes that Aaron Glenn made. But innovative play calling, I think, is the key here to losing a couple of really good football players. And then you have the running backs coach reunion, right? Which I think that is going to help Morton maybe see the field a little bit better. But Tashard Choice wanting to come into Detroit and push Jameer even further. I can't even imagine what that looks like. But we're going to find out this year what that looks like. Now, he coached Gibbs at Georgia Tech. He returns to Detroit. And I think that this ground game is going to reach new heights. So, again, I'm trying to counterbalance whatever you're throwing at me here. And I don't know. I guess you're going to have to tell me how I'm doing. So what's next?
Well, all right. Let's talk about this. So two names we've heard a bunch all offseason: Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson, right? But it wasn't just Glenn and Johnson that the Lions lost. They also lost 12 assistant coaches. That's a ton, man, to fill for any team at one time to need to fill those holes. You trust that they've got a system in place. But again, that's a lot of new people, at the helm, needing to call these plays and needing to coach these players and carry out the game plan. This is a huge opportunity and moment for Dan Campbell. He's got to prove he's got the gumption to keep the boat afloat or watch it sink. Dan Campbell, this is the year for him to show this is his team. I think he's done that, but now without these coordinators, again, another thought I have, should the Lions collapse, there's going to be people out there that are trashing Dan Campbell, saying that Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn were the reason that Dan Campbell was so successful. There will be those that say, I told you so. We know that that's coming. So pressure's on. Again, I think that they are embracing the pressure, but pressure can either make diamonds or it can start to divide people. So his coaching chops are going to be put to the test more so this year than maybe any prior to this year.
Look, this is not an easy task. It's also very new for Detroit, right? We've never had a coaching tree. We've never had this many losses, and we're still maintaining, by all accounts, at least a top 5 expectation for the season right now by a lot of analysts around the NFL. And I mean, my thought is no different than that. I still believe that this is a top 5 team. Matter of fact, the best way that you can combat coach losses, right, or assistant coach losses, is by maintaining some pillars on both sides of the football. So I'll start with the offensive side. The Lions retained Taylor Decker, left tackle. He's been around forever with the Lions. They've also retained Graham Glasgow, which he was an initial draft pick, I think back in 2017, 18, somewhere around there, and then comes back to the Lions, 2 seasons ago. This will be his 3rd season. But we also have Penei Sewell, right? 2021 first-round pick. And I think that, all 3 of these guys, by the way, all starters in 24 and 23. So those are the 3 pillars on the offense. And when you look at that, to me, it's okay. We got the left side protected of Goff. We got the right side protected of Goff, the 2 most important pieces, right? But we also know that interior defense means a ton. And if we're going up against some really good interior defenses, we're going to need some guys up front in the middle that can handle this. Graham Glasgow is going to go to center. At worst, he's going to be a right or a left guard. So last year, maybe he didn't have the greatest season at left guard. I feel like he's probably going to belong better over on the right side or in the middle. I think it's the middle to start. So that's 3 pillars that the Lions have kept in place. And they just added a 2nd-round pick in Tate Ratledge, which, in my opinion, one of the best guards out of the draft. But we have yet to see his work. Here's a little bit of stats to kind of back this up. So Penei Sewell, ranked as the number 2 right tackle. I think that we all understand that he's the best overall tackle in the league. 91.5 run block grade last year. 89.6 overall. He only allowed 1 sack in 2024 and 2023. So I'm not worried about the right side. Graham Glasgow, week 8 versus the Raiders, and this was in 2023 playing center. He only allowed 2 hurries, no hits, no sacks. Week 14 versus the Bears, again, playing center. Remember when Frank Ragnow was out for those 2 weeks? He only allowed 1 sack and 2 hurries for a total of 5 pressures in 2 games. I'll take it, right? That was him getting installed late in the week to play center. Frank Ragnow was suffering with that foot injury, and now it's a full offseason to get his body ready. So given the full opportunity, going through camp, getting your mechanics right, getting your body right, getting a good feeling about the offense again, I think that playing center is going to be critical for the Lions and Graham. But as he gets his body and his mechanics right, I think he's going to be just fine. And then there's the offensive line depth. So the Lions started to look at this a couple of seasons ago. Now, they went out and reached and grabbed Giovanni Manu. I mean, just a massive human being. Absolutely massive. If this guy actually takes the next step this season, coming from UBC, now with the Detroit Lions, I think that he's going to be one of the better players, at least for a depth player, that we've had in a long time. Christian Mahogany got a chance last year. Remember, he missed a whole year, the whole offseason with mono, and then he comes in late in the season and he gets to start. And he was the highest graded guard when he started, and he played, 56 snaps or something like that. So I'm not worried about the depth. But, oh, yes, Tate Ratledge, Miles Frazier. The Lions are good on the offensive line. Yes, there's new faces. It's scary for everybody. But, again, it doesn't take away the fact that we're a contender by any account.
Here's the thing, though. Let me ask you this, because when we say, there was a couple times where you said if, right? If this player takes the next step, we're looking at, and there's I don't think anybody could deny, if I just said to you 4 months ago, hey, you're losing 2 guys on this line and you're going to play a rookie and a second-year player that has limited playing time, right? And Ratledge and Mahogany. Does the depth get challenged if either of those guys, never mind getting hurt, if they're not producing, if they're not playing up to the level that they need to? There's a very high expectation. You want to believe that these guys can, but that's a lot of pressure, man. This isn't a bad team. A lot of times these guys that get the most playing time are going to bad teams. This is a team with Super Bowl aspirations. A player like Tate Ratledge has a lot on his shoulders. And we know Graham Glasgow, man, love the guy. He's had 2 tenures with the Lions, as you said. His play at the end of last year was very concerning. So if Glasgow doesn't produce at a high level, is he able, at his age, and limited action at center, going to be too big of a challenge?
I don't think so, man. And I think that's kind of what I just explained. There's no way. And I would love to know from, obviously, the people that are watching this later, in the comments, you tell us. Are the Lions pretenders or are the Lions contenders in 2025? More importantly, do you think that the Lions offensive line is going to have some big shakeups this year that could be too costly? Did Brad Holmes do enough this year? Did he pre-plan for this well enough in advance that when Frank Ragnow was going to call it quits, that he was going to be ready? For me, I think we're good. I think that we're just fine. This is part of the process. You can't have a backup plan for everything in the NFL. You just can't. One, you never know when it's going to happen. You don't know when someone's going to get injured. You don't know how long it's going to be. And you only have so many spots on the roster. So I think that, for me, Brad's been doing the right job. Okay, all else fails, Riley. We got to kick the ball, right? Not doing well, not moving the ball. That's why the Lions have the best special teams unit in the league. Not only with field goals, bringing in, Bates last year, who took the league by storm. And I think overall he was the 2nd best kicker, but he was the best kicker over 50 yards by a long shot. The guy made just about everything. Yep, he missed a couple of extra points. Can't do that. But he's solid. And I think he's going to have a better second year this year now that everything's slowing down, even for the kickers. Punter, Jack Fox, best punter in the league. So if we're not moving the ball well, we're going to definitely be able to boot the ball well. And then you have the special teams aces. This team has prided itself on building that third team. It's prided itself on playing all three: offense, defense, and special teams. The special teams unit on this team is going to take it the distance again this season, but I don't think that we're going to need it. I don't think that there's much for an argument here other than injuries, but you tell me, are we pretenders or contenders because we don't have special teams this year?
No, I think, and I'm still smiling at the smooth transition. That was about as smooth as it can go. Hey, all right, fine. If it's not going well, we can we put it on the ball. We can punt it. We can kick it. The only thing that comes to mind, as you said, is the health, right? Or does it flip? Because I'll never forget that. I've said it like 10 times on the show. You could have fit a piece of paper between the goalpost and the ball for Jake in Houston, right? But then he missed a couple of extra points, that kind of thing. Like you said, can't happen. Does it flip? The thing is, he made the big ones, right? And you love that about him. You're confident in him. You're going to roll him out. But obviously, your regression to the mean, can he maintain that level of efficiency? So I think it's health, and then hopefully just the ball bounces our way, and you see more of what you saw in Houston, for example. And that's how you overcome losing or winning a game with 5 picks.
Yeah. Did you say does it flip or does it FIP? Just kidding. All right. So Jared Goff. I'm glad you just mentioned that. The dude throws 5 picks in Houston. No quarterback has ever thrown 5 picks in a game and come back to win, right? I mean, he did it. So again, more reason that I'm not worried about the Detroit Lions being called pretenders. They've been riding Jared Goff's ass this entire time saying he was a bridge quarterback. Well, he's thrown for so many freaking yards. He has now built a bridge all the way from here to 49er Stadium, all the way out to Santa Clara. He's built a bridge, and he's going to continue to build a bridge. I think Jared Goff's going all the way this season, but we've got some rising stars on this defense too, Riley. Let's not forget about that. Let's not forget who we have coming back. Now, a lot of guys on this team have either had all-pro opportunities or will in 2025. Now, Sports Illustrated ranked Detroit's defensive triplets, as they like to call it, Aiden Hutchinson, Jack Campbell, and Brian Branch, the 13th best triplet in the NFL, highlighting what is going to be a very young and ascending core for this team. Now, they forgot a handful of guys, but one of the best run defenses in back-to-back seasons. They allowed the 5th fewest yards per game at 98.35. I know that doesn't sound successful, but it was highly successful. I mean, they were only allowing about 60 yards per game about midway through the season. And then as the season waned on, last year, they had a couple of big games against them that allowed those yards per game to creep up. But it was still only 5th fewest. They allowed the fewest first downs by rushing. They allowed the 7th fewest rushes over 20 yards. And they only allowed 2 rushes over 40. So pretty solid defense. Now, the Lions also have the 5th oldest starters in the league. Now, you would think that that's a bad thing, right? At 25.84 years old this season, the 5th oldest, like I said, it speaks to the Detroit Lions and Brad Holmes drafting very well, right? Retaining your guys, re-signing your guys. That is why our starters are at that age. It's not because we have a bunch of old free agents. It's because we have a bunch of young stars that have stuck around with the team since 2021. Now, the Lions also won 10 games last year without Aiden Hutchinson. They won 6 games without Alex Anzalone. They won 3 games without Ali McNeil and Aiden and Anzalone. They also played a lot of 3rd stringers and 4th stringers and even brought in 3 practice squad guys on the same day to start in the next game and won the game. So, look, the Lions finished 3rd in pressure rate last season. They culminated what was a 15-2 record on the backs of 3rd and 4th stringers and 6th and 7th defensive ends. What more could you ask for? Well, what you could ask for is all those players coming back in 2025, and they all are. All of the guys that got a ton of experience are coming back in 2025. Now, you've got Rodriguez, Aleem, and Wingo. They won't be able to start the season, but they have some really good backups, and they brought in some free agents this year that should help, bridge that gap at the start of the season. What about the best starting safety duo in the league? Kirby Joseph locks up a massive contract this year. Holds down the league on interceptions last season. Brian Branch, he was number 2 or number 3 last season in the rankings, right, as one of the best safeties. And they're both back again this season. To pair that up, you also have probably what is going to be one of the best DB rooms overall. DJ Reed, ranked as the fourth best cornerback last season. Terry and Arnold kept getting better and better and better as the season went on last year. They brought in Avonte Maddox, and they still have Ennis Rakestraw, who looks to have gained, a considerable amount of weight and looks, really good this season. So again, I think that the argument for the Lions being pretenders is a mute argument, but you're just going to have to tell me, how you feel about it. Do you think the defense is going to be able to go the distance again this season?
Yeah, well, everybody knock on wood here, because I've got to just again mention, you're getting 18 guys back from injury. That also means you're getting 18 players that have rested and rehabilitated and recovered, and now, again, obviously need to stay healthy. We don't want to see Hutchinson or any of these players go down again. If one of them do, does it start that psychological, here we go again? You're also dealing with a first-time defensive coordinator They groomed Kelvin Shepherd. He's been in the building. That helps. But at the end of the day, this is the first play he calls in a game. That'll be the first time he's made that call as a defensive coordinator. And then again, if there's pressure, if they're struggling out of the gate, is there a tendency to break outside of the norm? I feel like Dan Campbell's established that, like, we don't change from our identity. This is how we're going to play this game. He practices it all week, and that's exactly what they do. They stick to their guns. Would Kelvin Shepherd abandon that if things aren't going well early? They've also got to face, we've talked about the schedule, but on that schedule, the Lions are facing some of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. If I asked you to name the top 5 quarterbacks, I think you would do something like Mahomes, Lamar, Burrow, Jalen Hurts might be in there. All of those players, the Lions got to face this year. So there's pressure on Terrion Arnold. There's pressure on the newly paid Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, all these guys, DJ Reed. They've got to perform and hold things up on the back end of the defense. Also, the same can be said for the gauntlet of receivers and running backs for the schedule this year. Every offense that the Lions are going to face, most of them are going to have extremely tough battles. They're going to present tough battles for the Lions to overcome. So we'll see. What do you think, Will, as far as what maybe something the same old Lions fans might say if things don't go well?
Are you presenting an argument here? I'm sorry. I must have fallen asleep during this. I'm just kidding. No. You're exactly right, though, dude. I mean, listen, there is a gauntlet of receivers that we're going through. There is a gauntlet of quarterbacks that we're going through. You forgot a few, and I know you didn't do it on purpose, did you? But how about Stafford, Prescott, Mayfield, and Daniels? I mean, this is just an insane schedule. The Lions, like I said, they're going through back-to-back number 1 schedules, and it is what it is, right? This is when the cream rises to the top, as they like to say. And I would say that, whether it's the running backs that we're going through, which there's some really good running backs, Henry, Barkley, and others. I mean, there's a class of a class beyond the class, if you will, this season for the Lions to take on. I would say this, Riley, this will be my last statement. If the Lions can't do it, if for some reason that they regress, there's going to be some same old Lions fans out there saying, I told you so. There's going to be some out there saying it's all because he didn't give us a $40 million defensive end, and that's what we needed. It doesn't matter how many games we win. It doesn't matter what the circumstances are. That's what they're going to say. And I still would say they're full of shit. So that's it for this segment on Pretenders and Contenders. We'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.